Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to wearefree.tv, the channel of the people, by the people, for the people, where we interview many people from around the world about different subjects that are unusual subjects, that are alternative subjects to do with fifth dimension, the raising of the frequency, channeling, aliens, quantum mechanics, quantum physics, parallel universes, special, unusual education, healing modalities, both physical and spiritual and mental and psychological. Anything unusual, anything alternative, this is the place to come and learn about it, and obviously to be interviewed. So thank you very much. And we also have a very important Telegram group called No Censorship TV, where we upload links to every single English-speaking interview that we publish, and you could just go there and click on the link. Also, we have a website called wearefree.tv. You could go there, and then on the top left corner, click on English, and then join us, and then you could just enter your email and name and get on our mailing list, which means you will receive an email whenever a new interview is published. Also, I'd like to ask you to please share this interview wherever you possibly can, on your Facebook, on your Instagram, on your TikTok, your LinkedIn, your Twitter. Send it by emails, by postal pigeons, or any other possible way in order to get this very important and exciting information to as many people as we possibly can. So thank you very much for all that. And today, my guest is very, very interesting indeed. His name is Scott Lemriel, and he is known worldwide as the direct experience-based hidden truth revealing researcher. The interview is called Awaken Hidden Awareness. We are going to talk about Awakening, the series Extraterrestrial Race, past life, the good guys from the other worlds, the first sound, and many more interesting things. So hello there, Scott. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. Are we on good?
Amazing. Yeah. Did I pronounce your name correctly, Scott?
Yes, you did. Yes, you absolutely did. It is Lemriel.
Uh-huh.
The Say-Rays is you'd pronounce it as if it was spelled SAY-RAYS, Say-Rays, but it's SERES in spelling.
So it's series?
Say-Rays. Say-Rays.
Oh, so it is Say-Rays. Okay.
Say-Rays.
Say-Rays. Very good. So, wow, this is so interesting. I mean, we're going to have an amazing interview here, I can see, because I love this subject. So perhaps you could just introduce yourself briefly so we know who we're dealing with here.
I'm a published book author, a screenwriter, an international speaker, like so many other people on Earth. So many people are trying to get an alternative awareness or a positive and constructive awareness out there against great odds, as you know. So my work doesn't really include intentionally any negative nature about the future, the present, or anything like that, because I don't see as how that's beneficial to anyone. They're already full of fear all over the planet for every reason. I don't want to add to it. So my work is more about presenting what I've discovered through my lifetime of direct experience dealing with benevolent extraterrestrials, for the most part, in my case. I wasn't abducted by little grays, for one, but I did have direct experiences as a child and in Washington State at about the time when, what's his name? Arthur, I think his name was Arnold something. He was the guy that flew the Piper Cub around Mount Shasta, and the most vivid and still the best footage of a whole group of niner saucers or craft flying around the mountain.
Okay.
And at that time, I was living in Bellevue, not far from Mount Rainier.
So what about your experience? I mean, did you see aliens with your own eyes?
Oh, well, that's been part of my experience all through my life. So, yes.
And? Were you scared? Tell us about your first time.
No, okay, this will be really helpful. I was living in, well, first of all, I should go back to when I was in Utah as a young boy, about 3. And in that young body, it was walking up the steps to my parents' old brick house in Bountiful. It's outside of Salt Lake City. And I lived there for about 6 years, but when I was about 6, Actually, when I was 3, I suddenly had an experience where I was projected above my body as a fully mature adult, looking down on this little 3-year-old body and I looked up at the stars. It was dusk, and I could see from the star patterns where I was. I knew I was on Earth, and I said, Earth? What am I doing on Earth? That started me on a journey that's brought a great deal of beneficial results over the course of this lifetime. That's where my experiences started, but I never discussed this with my parents or my siblings ever. I probably was very wise not to. Back then, they'd put me in a straitjacket or something like that.
For sure.
The first experience was a fully conscious above the body experience at 3. I didn't plan it or try to fix it or endeavored to do it. I didn't know anything about it. But that opened a doorway that had been intentionally suppressed before I was born here. And that began a long journey of uncovering what was done subconsciously to not only me, but everybody on Earth at one time or another, that made it so that they can't remember who they were or what they knew before they were born here. And everybody thinks that's normal. It's not.
Amazing.
It's not.
I often ask myself, how reincarnation is something that I learned about, when I was 28, probably. Until then, I was like an atheist, who didn't believe in a soul or reincarnation and all of that. Sure. And now I believe in it. What do I mean, believe in it? I read about it, and I've heard so many people, who did come back and did recognize, and all these, these past life experiences and psychological methods that bring you back in between your lives and to different lives and the regression to other lives. So there's so much stuff out there about it. However, I only believe in it intellectually. I can't really relate to it. Sometimes I sit there and I'm thinking, my God, how come I can't remember any of my previous lives? And I've been to many therapists and what do you call them, like channelers, who told me about my previous lives and 3,000 years ago and 1,000 years ago, and I was this and I was that, but I can't bloody remember any of it. You know what I mean?
Well, it's not your,
damn it.
Yeah, it's not your experience. It's them telling you. It could be right. It could be wrong. You don't know, right? How can you know unless you have your own experience? My work is based on direct experience. I don't work with philosophy or belief, because to me, belief is a good place to start, but a terrible place to end up, because belief should result in a direct experience.
So that means that I shouldn't really believe in that. I should really believe that there's nothing, because I've never experienced anything else.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you should, because down deep it is true. You just can't reach it. And the reason for that is simple: terror. What do I mean by that? I don't mean that as a threat from anybody off-world. Okay, or underground bases or any of that, because that stuff ended a long time ago. And people in the extraterrestrial and UFO community today are still talking about things that happened more than 2 decades ago, like gray abductions, reptilians in bases, and all that kind of stuff. They're operating on something that was taken care of for one purpose, so this planet could have an opportunity to change without annihilating itself. So something was done to remove those kinds of associations from off-world. In other words, those kinds of elements were removed from the planet. But our military-industrial complex or classified people did not do that. This is news.
Okay.
So when we go back to this out-of-body thing, you go back to past lives. When I had that experience when I was 3, I started to remember lives in Lemuria, other planets, parallel dimensions, higher dimensions. And I had to work this in silence most of my life. My mother, who's 93, when I first published this book, The Saber's Agenda, as you can see on the cover, this is in the ice rings of Saturn in our own solar system. It's a ship that's stationed there right now. These were created by an artist paid that I hired and myself to put original artwork on these covers. It's not from the internet. This guy in the back, part of a character named Mark Sandfield. He's in a high Sierras and a camping trip. These guys are trying to kill him. They're not from this earth. This is an actual actor that was hired to portray this part. So that's how the covers got done for these books.
So what's going on? I mean, sorry, let's start, before we start with the questions, What I know that there's the reptilians, and they are apparently and and then there's the Anunnaki, and apparently the modern humans are actually a DNA experiment, like a combination with another extraterrestrial race, I think. And then there's the good guys, the Pleiadians, the Acturians, the Andromedans, the where Bashar is from, I forgot. There's the Syrians, I think they're pretty good. And then there's the Draconians that are bad, and the Greys are kind of between good and bad, or bad more towards the bad. And basically we're enslaved here by them. And can you just now basically the good guys are helping us, the ones I just mentioned, and the humanity is going to be this big disclosure at one point, and that we're going to, is that all true, what I just said?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It is. As far as the benevolent extraterrestrial races, recently went through a very large change in consciousness. They were benevolent, but they didn't really get involved in planets like this. I'm come down and take them over. That's a path of a tyrant. So they try to get races to come out of their own subconsciously driven fear, which means people on Earth are making decisions every day based on fear. Fear is negative. Any decision made on fear is going to be incorrect. It's going to get people into trouble because it's negative. So my work basically focuses on assisting people to learn how to take back control of these influences that are subconscious.
Okay.
And there's two aspects to that. One aspect is what people call soul on Earth, the real individual, not the body or brain, has a shape and a structure. It actually has a spherical form. Now think about this. If it's spherical, and that's what's running a body through the pineal gland in the center of the brain, that's the controlling mechanism. When a baby's born on Earth, there is a being who starts to run that body, because bodies and brains do not run themselves. They can't be run on automatic. They're a type of machine, a DNA-based, very well developed, like human beings, that are originally designed to have who they are running higher faculties of being through the consciousness of that body to experience the surrounding and environment where that body was born. It's supposed to be where beings are aware of what they are, that isn't a physical body or brain. And there's in other planets, and many that I've been to, they actually raise their kids teaching them the common nature of being able to leave their body and stay aware of this. On Earth, just the opposite is done.
So you need to be Buddha or Jesus to actually figure it out yourself.
No, you just need to understand certain things that most people have never thought about before.
No, I mean,
because it's not.
You're talking about
this.
You're saying that we're not our brains and our bodies. So that sounds very spiritual, like Hinduism and Zen. How we are the consciousness, we are the observer, and if you could get to a point, the non-duality. I don't know if you heard of non-duality, Ramana Maharshi, and all of that. It's all about connecting or sinking into that non-dual state, which is transcending the brain and the body. So you have a shortcut.
So you don't get rid of it. Okay, in a practical sense, what people call enlightenment, if a person becomes aware again of what they really are, that has not now nor has it ever been a physical body, that's enlightenment.
Yep.
That's the beginning of it, okay? It doesn't mean that you didn't know it once before long ago, and for one reason, one set of circumstances or another in their lives, you were made to forget it.
Mm-hmm.
People on Earth don't realize that they are all extraterrestrial. This is a big statement. It means that no human being ever originally evolved on this planet. They teach that in school and universities, but those are teachers who are taught by teachers who don't know. They're theorists. You got two kinds of scientists and teachers on the planet. You got the classified who know extraterrestrials exist and can't talk about it, and it distorts their lives because of that, because deception is a form of negativity. So they get disease, they get in trouble. Then you got the other kind that are academian people who theoretically understand things. There might be life on other planets and all that. And you've got these two that cannot talk to each other. One group, a small group, highly classified, know, and the other group is not allowed to know. That's beginning to change. Okay, so when we talk about meeting beings from other planets, including human beings from other planets, because there are many, then the way they grow up and the way they live is very, very different from people on Earth because they don't have subconscious minds. Think about this. If you have a subconscious mind, it means there's something that can be put in there that you're not aware of. It's subconscious. Mm-hmm. That influences people. And most people are terrorized to remember what's below that subconscious, where they were before this life, what they used to know, the source they came from, far in the higher dimensions before they started taking on bodies and having experience. That is all reversible under the right conditions. The first thing that has to happen is fear. The primary terror has to be dropped. And that has to be done co-creatively by a being like yourself or me, having the understanding of what it means to use the imagination correctly.
Okay.
What does that mean? Okay, imagination. What is it? Most people think it's made up in their brain, that they imagine something in the brain cells here. But in the brain, there is no, between brain cells, there's no motion picture camera and a screen upon which you can project an image. So when people daydream, you're in a classroom, you're sitting in this teacher's boring, and you're sitting in a classroom, as an example. You're looking out the window, and your eyes are getting light from outside, and you can see the parking lot. But then you start imagining being at the mountains or at the beach or out with your friends or even on another planet. What people don't understand is that ability to imagine is not taking place in their brain at all. It's being imagined from who they really are that isn't the physical body and brain. When people on Earth wake that up, this world will be transformed.
Wow.
And that's on its way here.
Have you woken up to all that?
Sure.
So you know who you are.
Sure.
And you
of course
are it. Always.
Yeah.
So you're awakened.
Yeah.
So you're enlightened.
Well, enlightenment is a two-edged sword. It never ends. You always go deeper into eternity and deeper into awareness. First thing is to recover who and what you are, right? Who and what I am. That has never been a physical body or brain. And the first step to that is to understanding what imagination really is.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're sitting down and you're imagining Star Wars and you're being on other planets 5 million years ago, another planet, people go into a trance state. It's very similar to putting the body to sleep at night. They don't realize it. I'm a writer, so you get really concentrated and you have to actually see and go out of your body and experience in a way what it is you're writing, or you can't get it because no one on this earth ever grew up in any institution learning here in universities, PhDs, George Lucas, anybody on earth that have this great imaginative ability do not get it from what they grew up with on earth because they never learned it here. So where does it come from?
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. How are they imagining? They're tuning into it, but they're unconsciously doing it. There's a fear, a subconscious fear that prevents them from knowing consciously that's what they're doing. So they just say, well, I wrote this, or I invented this, and they patent it. But inventions don't originate on this planet or even in this dimension. They come from higher realities and they're filtered down here through people who are attuned or in harmony with those things.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Interesting. Let's start with the questions after all, and then maybe you can help me because very complicated questions. So the first one is, when did you first begin to awaken on Earth to discover what is taking place out among the stars that never happened before, which you state is destined to unexpectedly cross paths with life on Earth? I have no idea what I just asked you.
Okay. That just means that out amongst the stars that people are wondering whether there's life out there, which is, to me, is hilarious.
Yep.
It's not only do I know there is, and certain classified people certainly do. So I get out among the stars all the time. So I understand what's out there. I don't doubt or I don't question it. It's not theoretical for me. I get out of my body and I go meet with people. After I meet with extraterrestrials who come here, they rarely pick anybody up here anymore. For instance, an alien's not going to, somebody's smoking a joint somewhere in the woods somewhere. They're never going to land pick that person up, no matter what people believe, because they don't deal with that kind of thing. And second of all, they don't pick up people until the person's prepared to not freak out if they did. Because the fact is, if a man and a woman, normal man and a woman, came in a ship, disc-shaped ship, 30 foot wide, scout class, and landed and got out and said, hi, we're here to meet you, most people, even those with the most fervent belief in extraterrestrials, would run in terror.
Yeah.
because their nervous system subconsciously, their body would be running this way and they'll want to talk. That's what happens with people. So they have to first be prepared to deal with beings from other worlds in a more balanced, mature way. Because otherwise, picking someone up is not productive. People have been picked up on ships and brought back to Earth, and their lives really didn't change that much. They still went on in their life. They still didn't know who they were. They remembered the experience, but that's about it.
But why would they want to pick people up, the aliens?
Well, they wouldn't normally, unless a person is prepared to be in some way co-creatively helpful to changing things here, I think. You have to be
abductions. We heard of abductions.
Yeah, but abductions aren't taking place anymore.
But why did they, when they did?
Well, there was a time when certain leaders of countries here made treaties with both good and bad extraterrestrials, or tyrant, imperial, and non-imperial, to get technology, especially after World War II. Because the U.S. and Russia brought Soviets or German scientists who were SS officers into both countries and pardoned them. Millions of people died at their hands.
But why would the aliens want? What interest would an alien have in abducting a human?
Well, if you're a tyrant and you want to force your will on someone, you want some DNA samples, and you don't want to ask permission for it, that's breaking an off-world treaty about this planet that people don't know exists.
Who would want to impose their will? So are you saying? I didn't understand that.
That's very simple. Please. Yes, in past times on this planet, there have been negative extraterrestrials who have come here. We all know that. But there have been good ones that have come here too. There was a time when people from another world offered to straighten out the mess on this planet with Eisenhower, for instance, classified. Yeah. And they were scared to death of them. They were human, but they didn't know whether they could trust them or they're going to try to take us over. CIA had just been formed under Truman, and they decided not to accept that offer. They wanted to keep their nuclear weapons. They just got them, and they're in competition with the Soviet Union. So they wanted to keep that. They felt if they gave those up, which was a requirement to get their help, by the way, because nuclear weapons are banned outside of this planet. They don't use radioactive material to get around the universe. They don't use radioactive warp cores like Star Trek, because that's polluting space. So they have certain bylaws that they must have us agree to, and that means the consciousness of people on this planet at least has to be brought to a point where a mass of people here will be able to ask for and accept their assistance.
Okay.
That is a transformation that has to happen.
I see. So who is the Sayres extraterrestrial race, and how does the Sayres agenda play a vitally important role in the survival of all people living on Earth today?
The Sayres are a human race, the most ancient maybe among many galaxies, and they're human. They're 18 to 25 feet tall. You've ever heard of human giants on Earth in some of your explorations?
Yeah, the Nephilim.
Skeletons of millions of years old. Right. The Sayres developed, they aren't even originally from our galaxy, but they developed what you would call, they were genetic scientists, and they developed genetics for different types of races, not just human, and developed them up to the point at which the beings that ran those bodies would become spacefaring. And then they disappeared and backed off into the background for a long time to see what we'd do with it. Consider that the Sayres work with beings from higher realities, but they also are here. The genetics we have on Earth for human beings come from them. The Sayres are far more behind influences in the universe than what people have so far described as extraterrestrials, UFO, or disclosure communities. It's relatively, they're unknown. The Galactic Alliance, which is centered near the galactic core of this galaxy, is much larger than anything that's been disclosed to people on Earth so far. Smaller organizations that are under their authority have been. So more is on the way about this. We have a right to know, as human beings, who we once were, what we once knew, and what's out there, because they're our neighbors, they're kin. Think about this. If my statement is true, that no human being ever evolved on this Earth, not from Neanderthal, not Cro-Magnon, not from monkeys, not from fish, not from amoebas, all that is theoretical and cannot be proven because no one's ever found the missing link between Cro-Magnon, Neanderthal, and us. There just isn't one they can prove because it isn't on Earth. They'll never find it. Human beings are very old. They're not young. It's just that people on Earth have been made to forget this. And some of the genomes on their DNA, which are switches, have been shut down deliberately. In history, people don't remember. So when they get on Earth, they live, 80 years when they used to live 800 or 1,000? How did you get on Earth? How do people get on Earth with no memory? That's the first thing that needs to be corrected in the thinking, misthinking of people, because they believe, first of all, that somehow they imagine with their brain, which isn't true. So that's not going to give them any experience. You're going to be going around in circles. And people want to understand what it is to remember who and what they are, how old they are. If the Atma, which is spherical, if we want to say that we are made in the image of some supreme being, it isn't one of these. They got that all wrong. It's actually spherical, planets and moons and suns and stars, and the planets and moons and suns and stars that make up galaxies and all the galaxies. They all originate from their creators. We are spherical and part of the source itself.
Okay, but what about the agenda of the Say Rays?
The agenda of the Say Rays is, first thing that happened in my experience is they appeared one day on the Galactic Alliance Council. This is a real council of beings, more than 450 million spacefaring worlds in just a little under half of our galaxy. And when they did that, they knew the Say Rays were in their history, but none of them had ever met one. And when they returned, because they went through a consciousness change, it has a lot to do with bringing an energy into the universe, into our solar system, and eventually this planet, that inspires all people to use their imagination in only one correct, constructive manner, in an uplifting, beneficial way. Because when people use their imagination now, they spend most of their time in the day thinking about fear, about the present and the future, and COVID, and nuclear war, and North Korea, and blah, blah, blah.
Not only that, also, will I have enough money to pay my rent? What if my child is going to be ill, and my wife wants me to get this, and I don't have time? You know, that stuff.
Yeah, of course, very practical. But where is it ever said that people should have to pay for the right to be born on a planet?
Yeah. Look at the animals.
On other worlds out there, did you know that money is illegal?
Yeah.
You don't know.
Usury.
Okay, why get rid of it? It's not necessary. It's artificial anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to do it as long as people believe it's valuable. If I give you a dollar bill and it's a piece of paper, there's no gold or silver behind it. It's just
that.
brainwashing.
Yeah, of course. With the scam of money and the Federal Reserve printing money out of thin air and all that. Yeah, we know all that. I thought you meant that on a cosmic level, like look at the zebras, look at the alligators. They seem to be doing okay without money, and the birds and the bees and the flowers. How come we're the only species on Earth that needs money and needs to work in order to survive? Right. No animal does that.
Here's the thing I'm trying to share with people, and I understand quite well. I'm not asking anybody to believe me at face value. I'm saying I will tell them the truth. And as I have directly experienced it, and with friends from out of town. Friends from out of town are beings from other worlds.
Yeah.
That's what I call friends from out of town.
So what's the agenda of the Say Rays? You say they're going to help every living being on every person on Earth, and they're going to, important to the survival. Do they have a plan to save us from the cabal?
The Say Rays are helping the Galactic Alliance. The Galactic Alliance, which the ships that come here, are in a process to help us. They don't want us to destroy ourselves because a nuclear war here would destroy not just the life on this planet, it would destroy life in many parallel dimensions. That doorways exist on this planet in quite a profuse number. People don't know they're there. Some very highly classified people do, but they don't understand the whole system of how it works. For instance, you've got an Earth here, the one you're familiar with, in a slightly higher parallel dimension, a higher molecular time rate, is another Earth, a little bit higher parallel within the physical universe. The more advanced races from the stars can travel between them. It's not just the physical planet you see in a Hubble telescope.
But is there another Michael Bloom and another Scott Lemriel and another Earth?
Yeah, but not necessarily like people paint it in science fiction and all that. It's more purposeful than what's been portrayed.
Okay.
Which mostly has been portrayed as haphazard and random. They tune into it, they write, they say, oh, there's other parallel dimensions, and they'll write about it. What they don't understand is that when they're writing about it, they're really experiencing it. They just don't know it. They think they made this up here.
Okay.
There's nothing they were ever taught on this planet that would put information in this brain that could create the things most people write about, especially when it comes to extraterrestrials, parallel dimensions, higher dimensions. These come from people's long forgotten and suppressed experiences, or they could not write about them.
Okay.
So we want to work that out. So the Say Raise Agenda is the title of the book. When you get into the book, you find out not only is it a lot of as yet unrevealed hidden truth disclosed in it, but it shares with you my direct experiences with all this, including meeting the Say Raise ambassador. His name is Terrellian. And when he presents himself, he shows an 18-foot tall body as a human body, with slightly pointed ears, almost elven-like. 1 billion years ago, the Say Raise evolved to the point where we get our genomes from. And many other races that travel to stars, by the way, because the reptilians and greys and all this were not always malevolent. They were all once in harmony with each other, long ago in galactic history. The Say Raise left, and then you look at what we've done with it. It's not very pretty. So in a sense, they're a higher being that's decided to come back and take responsibility for the mess that we've created to help us not just ruin everything. Now, Earth people have a hard time understanding this because they've never been exposed to this from childhood to their adulthood. They have no basis for having a grounded understanding. So the Say Raise Agenda book is about providing a grounded understanding of what's changed out among the stars. That is inevitable to be beneficial to people on Earth. There have been 12 separate times on this planet where this former Soviet Union, United States, pushed the button to go to nuclear war. 12.
Really?
Classified. And each time, craft would hover over the bases here in the Soviet Union and shut down their launch computers. You think they're going to tell people that? No. So it's like saying, and they wouldn't even talk to anybody. It's like, we're not going to interfere, take over your governments, we're not going to allow you. Do whatever you want, but you can't do that because that will harm billions of life elsewhere in other dimensions you people don't know about, and we are not going to tolerate that, and they don't.
So what about the ruling elite?
I don't worry.
You know the ruling elite, the cabal and the Illuminati, and the ones who are above the governments, and apparently the Queen of England and a few others, the Bilderberg group.
No, that's just classified. Anything classified. This was created officially after World War II ended. This hidden government that controls things, it doesn't care who's in elected office.
Yeah.
In the United States, it operates and gets funded. If you want to reverse engineer extraterrestrial technology, and you're in competition to develop weapons from this, like with Russia or China or whatever, then you're going to be motivated to not tell anybody, even most people in the Senate and Congress, except select people, what it is you're funding and why. They have to be very highly classified. And they do that in order to maintain secrecy on what they're doing with
extraterrestrial. Is there a shadow government? Is there really a shadow government above all governments? And do they work with the bad aliens?
They did.
Uh-huh.
They don't anymore.
Okay.
They don't have access to that anymore. This is what I'm trying to share with you. Because that was removed from this planet. Not by us. Not by classified people. Not by military. Not by presidents. Not by Queen of England or anybody else. Because we would have been annihilated and taken over if it hadn't been prevented. So, yes, the intervention took place to the point where they were removed off this planet. So that when I talk to you, I can tell you truthfully, I have no fear whatsoever about the present or future for this world. And I don't fear nuclear war, and I'm not worried about reptilians or greys or any of them. That whatsoever. And I can only say that if I have the experience to back it up. And
what about, are you not worried about 5G controlling everyone with the new injections and us becoming cyborgs, under the Agenda 21, to dilute the population, to exterminate like 90% of us. Not true?
No,
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it. Yeah, there's 5G, but it's not being created to do what people are touting on the internet out of their terror, their subconscious fear.
Yeah.
They can't prove any of it. Neither can you. Neither can anybody that's ever been a guest on your radio show worldwide. Can't prove any of it.
I agree. So can you describe the world in 20 years' time from now?
I think the best thing for me to say about that is for people to experience it, because otherwise it's just data. I can say it's this and it's that, and it's going to happen on this date. You know what people do psychologically? If you give them a predictive date about something, they fixate on it because the fear in the subconscious won't. They fixate on it, and then they will not change themselves to know things for themselves.
Yeah.
They take outside data, fixate on it. They don't have the experience, and they get trapped by it. You know.
Fair enough.
It's good to take in information, but if the information doesn't provide a way to experience what it is, what good is it ultimately after 20, 30, 40, 50 years?
Okay. So you know the two books, can you tell us the beneficial nature and differences between your two published books, The Sayre's Agenda and The Emerald Doorway?
Sure. This book. Now, why is this on the cover of this book?
Why?
Why are these scout craft about 30 feet? See the semi-spheric pods underneath?
Yeah.
Very similar to what's been photographed in Billy Meyer and all that, but these are a little more sophisticated. These are present time. This is a mile-long cylindrical ship with a bridge control front, this identical one in the back, has an anti-gravitic light around it, as do these, and it's stationed permanently for now in the ice rings, which are 1.5 miles thick approximately, that make up the rings that circle the planet Saturn. They're ice. How do you get ice circling a gas giant that has no water in it? Quite a mystery, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So this is centered there. This is called an Emerald Star Cruiser. It's from the Galactic Alliance. It's not from a local organization of spacefaring worlds. It comes from the Galactic Core, not the very center, but near it. Okay, and this ship is designed to travel through interdimensional doorways, far beyond the speed of light. They don't have that problem. You see all this black in space out here?
Yeah.
All the stars? Everybody looks at that when they see a image of a Hubble telescope, right? And it's time-lapse photography to gather all the light. People's human eyes see that as a black background between the stars. But in reality, it's a white golden light, and it fills the void of space between all things that float in it. It is a first source energy, and it's an unconscious energy. And the more advanced races know how to work with the energy between all things that float in it to get around the universe. They work with it in harmony, and it reveals its secrets to them, how they design their craft to be able to use that energy, which is unlimited, and not even pollute anything or even use energy.
Okay.
It's traveled mechanism, okay?
And the other book,
so,
the difference?
This one is more about what's happened out in space recently to change the negative nature of beings in other worlds. And Earth is next. And this just, in the back of it, though, this is going to be very important for you. So let me say it. In the back of this book begins a section.
Yeah. Sayre's Agenda, special techniques to safely explore and awaken deliberately hidden truth. Okay.
There is a technique involving the first sound behind creation that people once knew, or it was suppressed in them. And there's a special technique for the prologue and one for each of the 29 chapters. So when a person explores this, and this is, the only thing I do is sell books. Now, I work with people around the world in private sessions are recorded on Zoom that are not known on the internet at all. And I help people to get out of their body and go on journeys and break down and get rid of the fear that's trapping them.
Yeah.
And I can't do that for everybody on Earth because I never, ever charge any money for it.
Really?
There's no monetary system involved whatsoever.
Amazing.
I can't involve it because of who I have association with that aren't from Earth that won't use it.
Okay.
If I want it to be effective, I can't use money for it. So I'll sell books. And if I don't get the books out, print on demand around the world through Amazon or Ingram Spark, which gets it into bookstores, nobody could get it. It costs $60 to mail a 1-pound book to Germany, U.S. postage. It's impossible. So I have to sell them that way. And The techniques are here. So let's say, Michael, you had a dream, right?
Yeah.
And you were flying out of your body somewhere and free as a bird, and people were chasing you. A lot of people have had these dreams. They're actually experiencing a life in a body they are running as a single spherical atma on, say, the astral plane, next major division above the physical. It's very real, but it's made of finer molecular matter. There are more abilities there in people, and all matters move through emotion. All our emotions come from the form and the body you're running on that life, as well as running this one on Earth. And that's been suppressed in people on Earth. And it really makes them very handicapped to progress, because that's their higher selves, so-called. Mm-hmm. Not who they really are, because who they really are is spherical. And it has structure. And that structure looks like this.
Mm.
You see that?
Yeah.
White core, and gets to a yellow, to orange, to red, to green, to blue, to violet, to lavender, golden exterior. All these little teardrops that make up this are higher faculties of being. This is what was made in the image of the source that we are, not these.
So is that the soul?
That's the soul. What people in other worlds call Atma.
Yeah. Atma is in Hinduism, is Atma.
Yeah, well, Atma didn't originate in Hinduism. In fact, none of the religions on Earth originated here either.
Yeah. Money
did not get involved in Earth. Royal families did not get invented on Earth. They were imported.
Really?
That history goes back 65 million years, when the dinosaurs were made extinct here. And the people have been living here all that time. Where is that history? It's occluded, pressed.
There's a question about that. We're going to get to it. So I would like to ask you, if we are not alone in the universe, how is the vast organization of peaceful spacefaring races kept secret from the great majority on Earth citizens? And how is this underway to be changed forever, orchestrated by wondrous off-world beings?
It's very simple, really. What's underway now, that has never been underway out in our galaxy before, is its purpose is to change tyrant natures, which is always driven from terror and fear, subconsciously.
Change what?
Tyrant natures.
Oh, tyrant natures, yeah.
Yeah. So, for instance, think of a reptilian, because everybody's heard about them, or a lot of people, or greys or something that are controlled by their beings. And you think about what makes them eat people or kill people or torture people, whatever they do. It's because they're living in terror of their more, like their Gestapo back home and their emperor and all that. And all of that was programmed into them artificially to drive them to be destructive, terrorizing tools by another race in galactic history. And that needs to be sorted out. So they've been quarantined. In fact, our whole solar system is quarantined right now. We can take anti-gravitic reverse engineered ships outside the atmosphere, go to a base in the backside of the moon, go to Mars, but they're not allowed to travel outside our solar system. Very highly classified, because space out there beyond our solar system is already occupied by more advanced races. There is never going to be a future, Michael, of us going to the stars in polluting spacecraft, taking Russia and China, United States, fighting over the spoils of space like they're thinking right now, incorrectly, because they're going to run into a hell of a surprise. Space is already occupied. They don't have that right. The only way we can go out among the stars is to become a harmonized, balanced planet with benevolent leaders and be invited to join that organization of worlds, in which case we get all their technology, cures for disease, turn back on the genomes that are shut down so your body doesn't age and die in 80 years, more like 1,000 or more, which is normal for them. Normal. People on Earth aren't living normally. They just think they are incorrectly. Most people are afraid. They pray to God, but they're terrorized to actually meet what that is, face to face. Because they figure, oh, if I meet it and I'm just a little bit off and I get a pitchfork in my keister and I get sent to hell.
So are you saying this?
That's what people do.
Yeah. Do I understand correctly? So we are kind of innocent because a certain extraterrestrial race came here, or a few bad guys in the past. They screwed us up. They switched off our genes. And now we are the way we are, which is bad, not for our fault. It's not our fault or our doing. And now the good guys, the good aliens are saying, well, it's not your fault that you're screwed up, dear humans, but we are going to basically remove the bad influence over you, and you need to sort yourselves out. You need to heal yourselves by yourselves, not by someone else who's going to come and fix you for you. And once you've managed to achieve that harmony within yourselves, if you manage to achieve it, then we'll invite you to be part of our Galactic Federation and give you technologies and give you a suite for being good kids.
I can see why you would assume that, but it's more than that. They're not just going to leave us on our own because they know we can't figure it out on our own. Mm-hmm. People are too suppressed. Their higher faculties of awareness have been shut down, or they're just not used. People on Earth grow up not using these higher faculties.
How will they help us? So they will help us.
Yes. They don't even know those higher faculties exist. How to get out of your body is just a higher faculty.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Everybody does it every single night when they put that body in the trance state we call sleep. What do I mean by that? The pineal gland in the center of the brain secretes serotonin, makes melatonin, puts the body on automatic when you leave every single night. But if you're not trained and you don't use higher faculties to bring back where you go at night, you're not going to remember in the morning because you're not doing anything to remember. You're not co-creating it. Correct use of the imagination has a great deal to do with using higher faculties and turning them back on. That's where my work comes into this. That's why I'm.
So how are they going to help? How are they going to help?
Well, they already are by when people are out of their bodies at night. Instead of confronting them face to face, because people would be in terror, riot in the streets, and all that kind of stuff. Instead of confronting the hidden leaders, the cabal, as you say it, and challenging them to remove their power, they're working with those same leaders to get them to know what it is they're not doing right and why they've been way off base all this time. You got to change from the inside out so that a real landing of craft can take place, and people, as terrified as they might be.
Did you say that they're going to change the cabal's way of thinking? So the cabal are going to become good themselves?
Some of them already have been. Not all of them.
So what about these theories, about the children that are held underground, about all the sexual slavery? Have you heard about that? And how there's going to be
let me tell you, Michael.
A darkening, and Trump's going to come out with QAnon and show the world what's been going on with the satanic rituals and all that, and the adrenochrome. Have you heard that stuff?
Never going to happen.
I'm not surprised. But have you heard that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Sure, but I don't focus on any of that. It's a waste of my time on this planet.
Okay.
Because it keeps people going around in fear and circles going nowhere. Right? Like your nails nailed to your shoes nailed to the floor, and you're going around going, I'm enlightened, I'm evolving. Fear, 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 fear. Fear does not mix with leaving your body. Fear cannot be mixed with higher consciousness. Fear cannot be mixed with you remembering what you once knew before it was suppressed in you. They don't mix. So the first thing people have to do is find out how and co-create with help from friends from out of town, shutting down those fears until they can be permanently removed. In other words, people focus right now on fear because they're brainwashed to do it. 3/4 of their day is spent on fear, and maybe 1/4 towards the benevolent good of their family, wealth, and making a success of their lives. But most people, including government and classified people, are living in fear. Terror, really. And that misdirects their ability to solve the problems of this planet altogether. It just wastes energy everywhere all the time because it's negative. Can't do anything else. It's karma.
Yeah.
If people want to get above karma, drop karma. And you can drop karma. You can actually, you don't have to pay back for all the bad you did in 50 million lives. Ending karma ends when you stop agreeing with it, when you stop focusing on it. And that means withdrawing your imagination from adding energy to it. It's like this keyboard. Here's a keyboard. If I want to focus on terror of the future, I push this button. A subconscious program people don't even know runs over the nervous system and plays a recording of terror and death and torture from other lives. And they run around in circles stimulating these things. We work with getting people to stop pushing this button. Push this one. It's about only uplifting, benevolent things. If we don't use our imagination that way, we are in trouble.
So people watching this interview, should they just contact you on the details below and just say, I want to be your student, can you please help me? And you're just going to help them?
I will, yeah. I will. Okay. And most people want me to do it one-on-one, but let's face it, I can't even handle 100 people. Right now I work with 10 around the planet, in a very private way. They're gaining great ground. Their lives have changed.
So you will do one-on-ones. You will do one-on-ones.
I can occasionally, yeah, but I can only do so many. So the techniques in the back of this book, this one, they're to help people get in touch with everything I'm sharing with you through their own direct experience.
I see.
This is like a doorway. Right. I don't claim to own the energies revealed in here because I don't own the universe. I'm just a drop, a spherical being in a mighty ocean of that same energy.
Yeah.
Again, the blackness in space between all things that create little magnetic worlds and float in it, galaxies and planets and moons and suns and stars, are all floating in a primordial first sound energy that comes from many higher dimensions above this world. It is not biased. It is a co-creator with us. In other words, what you imagine in it, it brings into manifestation, whether it's good or bad or both. It's neutral in that way. So there are aspects of that energy out there. If we contact it right, it begins to move energy through you that's only constructive. And the karma starts to be dissolved away, the unconsciousness, the fear.
Lovely. So another complicated question. During your presentations at conferences held around the world and in the Sayre's Agenda book, you reveal that no human being ever originally evolved on Earth. And this includes the majority of the planet's mammal and animal life as well. Human beings have been able to live on Earth for about 65 million years since the dinosaurs were made extinct. In Hidden History, you reveal, how did we forget our own history as beings during this colossal amount of time? So what am I asking you here, really?
You're asking me, where were you made to forget? Why? That's really what it means. This is complicated, but I wrote them to you that way so that a lot of information is covered in one sentence. Now, the question isn't so complicated. The answer is simple. The question is, how was I made to forget and when did it happen? Did it happen on Earth? Did it happen before I was born on Earth? It happened before you were born here, and then you were brought here. The genetic tampering with the
me personally. You mean the human race?
The human race.
Yeah.
Yes. The entire human race.
Yeah.
What do we have on Earth? Japanese, Chinese, African American, Caucasian, Semitic, Aboriginal, all these different short guys in the Amazon jungles, big guys, all different kinds of skin color and tones, but all human, right?
Yep.
None of them originated on this planet. They represent those types of humans that have evolved on other world systems long ago. Some of them are trinary and binary star systems, which astrophysicists and scientists know exist out there now.
What's that?
That means there's planets revolving around a sun system. There's two suns, a big sun and a smaller one revolving around it, and then more planets around that. Some are trinary systems.
But didn't you know the Earth is flat? Didn't you know the Earth is flat and the sun evolves around the Earth?
If you ever get above the Earth and look at it, you learn differently pretty quickly.
So the world
Otherwise,
is spherical.
Of course.
So you don't believe in the flat Earth theory?
No, of course not.
Okay.
Because that's not my experience. My experience, I know better. I experience it. I don't believe in these things, Michael. I know them. And I'm sharing that knowledge with other people. It's not an ego trip. I'm not getting anything out of it. I don't even charge people.
Yeah.
So, except for the books, because otherwise people can't get them in their hands. So human beings, consider this, evolved out of the universe long ago in a history nobody remembers on Earth, deliberately made to forget that. Political prisoners were brought here. Earth has been under a treaty amongst extraterrestrial races for a very long time, since the last great war happened out there 500,000 years ago. People are talking about wars taking place in space right now.
Yep.
There aren't any. If there were, we'd all be dead. You kidding? Intergalactic wars and Earth is just somehow immune to it? There's a reason why we're not being affected by such things. There's no war, but there has been a Cold War between alien races that have been quarantined not to do what they did long ago. They sneak around, grab people, implant them. And I don't mean implanting chips under the skin. That was created on Earth. There's a reason for that. The implant that I'm talking about that are subconscious in nature are terrorizing programs that prevent people from remembering, because they're told, if you remember this, we're going to eat you alive again. You will be tortured to death. This is what's in people, and it's nothing but a program. If I can get people to have the surrounding and the fellow beings to assist them to have the courage to confront that memory, it becomes conscious after that, and it no longer influences them. And behind that starts to return all their higher faculties, because the fear prevents from being worked in. Okay? So I want to get back to another experiment. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm going to ask you, why do most people on Earth today not know who they were before this lifetime, how they got here, why they are here with little or no form of memory intact, which is what you just said. This, right. These implants of fear.
But that didn't happen on Earth.
Yeah. So
how are you going to find a solution to that if the technology that was abused to create it isn't on Earth?
Yes, you're going to bring the good guys.
You've got to work with the good guys, because they know how to undo that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they are very adept, very well trained.
And it's all in your book. So if I read your book, I'll just know how to do it.
You will begin to remember a lot of stuff you don't remember right now. And you go, my God, how did I, it happens to lots of people I work with around the world. And it's universal in that way. The book's like Ambassador Trellian is the ambassador of the Extraterrestrial Race to the Galactic Alliance, first of all. You won't meet him walking around on Earth 18 feet tall. People are not ready for him. They're barely ready to meet people from other planets without freaking out. Yeah. Not because they don't want to freak out, because subconsciously they would, is the problem. Okay. Not because their heart is...
The Galactic Alliance is the Galactic Federation?
No, it's not called. That comes from Star Trek. That's all from Gene Roddenberry. Federation came from Star Trek, from Gene Roddenberry.
Because many people talk about the Galactic, many channelers.
Because they don't know how else to relate to it. Its actual term in English, meaning an organization of world systems near the galactic core that is benevolent, all of them. And they're not all human. That takes place at near the center of our galaxy. Now, let's see, where was I going with that?
I don't know, but
what was your question?
The question was to do with, I think we spoke about it. Oh, no, I spoke about the Galactic Federation and the Galactic Alliance.
Right. I don't think that way, because in English it's called the Galactic Interdimensional Alliance of Free Worlds. Mm-hmm. In English.
Yeah.
Interdimensional. Think of it this way. Beings that travel the stars. You've heard stories about spaceships people have seen blinking in, traveling a distance and blinking out.
Yep.
When they blink out, all they're doing is increasing the energy output, changes the molecular time rate of what makes up their craft. And they actually go into a parallel dimension. They know how to do this. They know what's there, and they come back here. It's just technology, but it's more advanced than people on Earth understand. What powers their ship and how it works and doesn't pollute anything. That's why nuclear weapons and isotopes that are imbalanced that make nuclear bomb-grade ore, man-made on Earth, are outlawed out there.
Mm-hmm.
They have much more advanced defensive capabilities than that. And that is only destructive. There's no constructive use for imbalanced nuclear isotopes. It's just deadly. Gets out of its lead-lined case, kills everybody. There's no point to it. There's no future in it. There can't be a future in space in the Galactic Alliance with Earth until Earth is mature enough, until the people on Earth can be trusted to join them in a responsible, mature way without all that subconscious fear. It's practical, very practical. So they know what the troubles are of people on Earth and how reactive they are to everything from outside, all the negative stuff that's in the atmosphere of Earth. Everything that's ever been done to anybody on this planet in the past, Rome throwing people to the lions and all that kind of stuff, Attila the Hun and Mayan and Aztec cutting people's hearts out, and Anunnaki, who were reptilians, really, who had a mining colony there, which is all that was. Different races were allowed to have small pieces of how do you say that? Little pieces of land to work on under treaty, off-world treaty in Earth's history. But no one race has ever been allowed to dominate this world. If you notice, no extraterrestrial race has ever come here and taken over, no matter what anybody says on the internet. It's not been allowed to happen. It hasn't happened.
Okay.
Doesn't mean that negative influences have not been here working with our military underground, because for a time they were. Now they're not. The problem is these conscious implant programs is what we're left with. The beings aren't here to influence, but the programs are, and they have to be undone. So this whole diabolical thing was not caught in time and not reversed until about 20 some years ago, when the beings people talk about so much that are such a threat were removed from here. They weren't killed, they were sent home. So it gives us the opportunity to move up, have a disclosure take place in a non-destructive way.
And did you explain what kept the good guys from other worlds from openly showing up to transform this planet and set free its subconsciously misdirected people?
Sure, an off-world treaty amongst many races out amongst the stars. Also, their consciousness was not motivated. It was more like Star Trek, non-interference, right? Because if you interfere directly in the choice of people, then you're acting like a tyrant. You can't walk both sides of the fence and say you're good and start acting like a tyrant. So they don't deliberately intervene that way. Other races have tried to on Earth take this place over. It's been prevented. And it's clear we are still not taken over by anybody. You don't see spaceships coming down here with big cockroaches in them blowing up our cities. It just isn't there. It's not happening. So people conclude from many of the films they see that there are wars taking place out there. There's no evidence of that anywhere that anybody can prove to anyone on this planet, because there aren't any. That doesn't mean there aren't some tyrant races out there that travel the stars. There are, but they're policed. I want to make this clear, because Earth, left to its own devices, the way people are, would destroy themselves here. There's no question about that. But that's the problem. Earth cannot be allowed to be destroyed that way, because it will harm billions of life in other worlds, even in our solar system. People don't know exist, and we do not have the right to do that. 7 billion people don't have the right to inflict that upon 7 trillion. It's not possible. So fortunately for us on Earth,
isn't it changing?
Yes.
Because soon it's going to happen. There's going to be full disclosure, and it's being prepared off-world right now. So what's being prepared, and when is it going to happen?
What's being prepared it's not in a preparatory stage anymore. It's underway.
Yes.
That means there are influences of benevolent beings from craft that come into our solar system that are stationed here now to keep bad guys from ever coming back here. It's a policing action. Our solar system is quarantined.
What about the full disclosure? When is full disclosure going to take place?
Well, that's going to take place when a mass of people can handle it without hoarding toilet paper and paper towels just because they're scared of COVID.
So that could be in 500 years.
No, because the way this is being, I'll tell you what, when you go into this, you're going to find that the second half of it, a little less than that, talks about what has not yet happened here yet. And you're going to find that out, okay? How it is done with a certain kind of energy emission that dissolves or eliminates subconscious programs, subconscious terrorizing implants, and replaces it with the knowledge that people once had when they came from the source before they started incarnating. It's a process. It is a practical process. But
it
like
doesn't look like
and I agree,
most people on Earth are anywhere near not being afraid.
No, they're not, because governments do that to maintain their control. But governments too are changing, and that's classified. The people in the governments, most of the generals in the U.S., many of them, are not wanting to prevent disclosure. They want it. I'll tell you why. When you lie to someone and you create a system that lies to everybody, it's negative, which means it affects their families and them negatively. They get disease, they die, they're in fear. I would not want to be classified amongst them for all the money in the universe. Somebody offered me $1 billion to be classified with them, I would say no. No, thank you very much. Yes. Wouldn't do it. No. Why don't you guys change first, and then we can have fun?
Yeah.
So they're being changed. I know, because I work with people out of body. In other words, I work with people when they're out of their body, when most of their fears are asleep with the physical body they grew up with. And then are more open to be able to see new things without the terror, and experiment and change and co-creatively change with beings that can help them. So when they come back in the body, they are more aware suddenly somehow of a lot of things that they just couldn't comprehend before. Because intelligence, what you call IQ, isn't here. There's people I work with that have a 10,000 IQ compared to what you could measure here on Earth, or more. But it's not coming from this. It's coming from the being that has the capability to understand and circumnavigate the universe as a being, not even a ship. You can travel that.
What about this ray, this the new consciousness transforming energy ray?
There is a sound, a first sound behind all creation, first word in the Bible and things like that. And in other books, it is a first sound vibration or first creative, omnipresent field of energy. It's omniscient, omnipotent. It only knows what it presently knows now. The thing people don't understand is, why are we incarnating in these bodies? Why do we live and suffer and die? What's the purpose behind it? The actual purpose behind that is to become a conscious co-creator with the source itself. Not a co-slave, not a co-worshipper, a co-creator. Because the energy field that emanates from higher dimensions down underneath and behind the physical universe, between all planets and galaxies, we call the black void of space, is not a void. Scientists know it's packed full of energy. They just don't understand it. So in the CERN super collider in Switzerland, where they crash particles together, they determined they detected this other energy that is not nuclear or atomic in nature, doesn't follow the laws of physics, and it's behind everything. So they call it the God particle. Quantum physicists would think of it as, we're little quantums in a great big quantum. Same energy. And that's correct. So
the ray.
Yes, the ray itself is a new consciousness from the highest levels, many dimensions above here, that has changed in what people call the Supreme Being. Recently, it never happened before, and it's filtering down through the system to permanently retire the failed experiment we call evil. Hasn't worked. It's failed. Many beings who were supposed to come here and learn things and go back home haven't been returning. They don't even know how to get out of their body now, particularly on Earth. But that is reversible.
So what's the ray about?
The ray is, think of it as an omnipresent field of energy. What people pray to, they call it divine spirit.
Yes.
But they pray to it, and we're supposed to imagine in it consciously, not just pray to it. Imagination is really what it communicates.
How is it new? How is this ray new?
Because the consciousness that's moving through it has never been in that people call divine spirit before. It's something expansive, something different. Because this experiment of good and evil, up and down, right and wrong, that traps beings in bodies and makes them terrorized to even know what they are before the body dies. People think that's normal. It isn't. That's not normal at all for many other worlds out there who don't live like this. So they are now motivated from this new ray to take part in helping straighten out this mess because of one thing. They began to realize that many of the beings that are on this earth right now, yourself and myself and others, originated out among the stars and were brought here and shut down a long time ago. And kindred spirits, relatives and friends that have been missing since the last Great War 500,000 years ago. And then when they realize that, they have a responsibility to help get us out of this mess. And they can't do it by forcing it on people. They can't do it by landing ships all over the planet when people aren't prepared, because they'll riot in the streets. I mean, people, when they got scared of COVID, hoarded toilet paper and paper towels until it created an artificial shortage. It wasn't even there. And then politicians have to step in to stop that before it ruins the whole world, just from COVID. So that fear that makes people react this way selfishly, that's got to go. That's the first thing that's got to go.
How come
the best way
forces,
to do that,
you know that there are forces. Again, people say it's a scam, and there's the whole thing was orchestrated in order to cause fear. So it's not like something innocent that happened to happen, naturally, and people are afraid of it. It's like somebody wants to instigate fear as much as they possibly can.
That was orchestrated, yes, by beings who are more terrorized than the people they make afraid themselves.
Okay.
That's the motivation of all tyrants, okay? Make you control before you find out about me and destroy me. Suppression. Yeah. That was not created on Earth. That was imported here from tyrant races who lived that way. amongst good races. Do you ever notice how you never hear about the good beings that had colonies here amongst a few smaller ones that were tyrants like Samaria? You never hear about the colony of Lemuria was a colony from the stars. And there have been many such colonies on Atlantis. These were colonies. And if you go back before Atlantis and Lemuria were destroyed because of the polar flips that happened here, every 100,000 years, just like clockwork, 6 ice ages in 600,000 years. They happen overnight. They're completely destructive. And then the world resettles it, and then it's colonized again. That has happened going back far more in history than people have any idea. There have been whole cultures on this planet. There's even been a nuclear war on this planet. Long ago, not in Lemuria and Atlantis, much longer before that. Each time poles flip, new land masses would rise up from the seafloor and others would sink, counterbalancing. One thing that my work discloses, because it's been my experience with the Say-Rays and more incredibly evolved beings who are the mechanics that run the galaxies, keep the galaxies, the worlds spinning on their axis. They're actually beings behind that. And one of the things is that Lemurian Atlantis and places like that, they used to call, we went from a golden age to an iron age and back to a golden age. That's ended for this planet. A few years ago, the poles were tipping over dangerously. It was announced on the news, and then one day they just went back to where they were in 1500.
Okay.
That was done deliberately. So we're not going to have any more polar flips here. It keeps anybody on Earth from evolving naturally. If you're on another world where you're a human being and you're raising families, living thousands of years between lives, you choose to leave or go to a new one. And that world could have been there for 250 million years with space travel or longer. No poles flip. It's not been that way for us on Earth because this has been an imbalanced planet. And that goes back to destruction. That goes back to a destruction of a planet between Mars and Jupiter. Okay. It was called Maldek. Now it's an asteroid field circling the orbit of a planet that goes around the sun at high speed. It's about roughly twice the distance between Mars and Jupiter than any other planet because there was a world there. That asteroid field didn't just get out there by accident. They're moving. I think the Earth moves at 50,000 miles, or don't quote me on this, but it's very fast around the sun. It's got centripetal and centrifugal forces keeping it where it is in orbit. If it's blown up from a certain device, blows it up from the outside, some chunks are going to go by Mars, wipe out the atmosphere. Another one's going to go by and hit the Earth and cause a catastrophe. But generally, it's going to spread out, moving at high speed, and then it's going to coalesce in an orbit of the planet still going around the sun. And that's how the asteroid field got there. Several millions of years ago, when that was destroyed, imbalanced Earth. It's not natural. It's not normal. So these are history.
Crazy stuff. What can I say? What about the first sound behind and supporting all creation that you
I'm going to sing it for you now.
Yeah, can you demonstrate it?
Yes, I want to do that. First of all, this is hidden in plain sight in the word human. Human, woman, child, doesn't matter. When a cat purrs, they're hewing. There's an atma, just like you, running that cat. The cat brain and body does not run itself. If people knew this, their treatment of life on this planet would be vastly different because they would be aware to respect all life. Human beings on Earth are meant to be the caretakers of less developed species. And we don't set a good example for them. Human beings kill and destroy each other. And the animals must follow suit. We were supposed to be caretakers because people are so unconscious. They're not doing their job at all. So the planet's very out of balance. Animals will tear each other apart because people do it. They think that's natural.
So what about that
if you go to another planet,
the first sound?
The first sound, sure, I'm going to do that. It is the sound that the universe makes in between all things that float in it. It is the sound what people call divine spirit makes. It's a first word or sound. Finding that out and working with it begins to connect that person back to the source from whence they once came before they started all these unconscious incarnations. It starts to reverse the process because that's what it's designed to do. Sounds like this, and it is not owned or patented possessed by any organization on this planet. Some organizations put it out, but they can't own it. It's the first half of the word human. And when you say it, it affects the pineal gland, the center of the brain. It opens a door. A certain kind of protection comes with that so that you can begin to recover who you are.
So what's the
sounds
sound?
like this.
Yeah.
You. Round hole sound. You. Pause. Look and listen. You begin to hear the sound because the hue mimics the sound the universe makes. It is a door opener. This is real important. It provides a way for people to have direct experience. Wow. Without it, I don't think they have a ghost of a hell of a chance of doing that. And when you do it for a few minutes, like before you go to bed at night, it's going to turn off the negative subconscious programs. It's like taking the keyboard and going, oh, that fear is off. Then you leave your body and you can consciously work on bringing back more of what you're doing when you're out every single night anyway. Mm-hmm. You got a mass of people on Earth leaving their bodies, from the crudest person, terrorist, to everybody else, that don't know anything about this anymore, and they're so suppressed they react violently because they can't handle it anymore. Fortunately, only a few people go postal in that sense. But it's still a fact that people on Earth don't remember who they are, why they're here, what their purpose for existing is, and how they can change that.
I want to ask you about in the book, Sayre's Agenda, you talk about this beneficially uplifting technique, that there's no negative nature of any kind exists in this technique. And you say that each person
and no negative nature of any kind. This is the most important part, because it'll answer your question. No negative nature of any kind, technology or beings, tyrants, reptilians, or anything else can penetrate into your space when you're doing it, because it's the sound that exists and supports everything before everything distorts it. Beings distort it. So you're going back to the sound that supports everything and working with it in an uplifting, constructive, beneficial way. That helps a person understand how to use what they choose to imagine is extremely important to whether they get free or stay doing this from fear. So it shuts the fear off and needs to be experienced by people themselves. So the Emerald Doorway book, this is what we look like, not this. This is a master teacher named Ramu. This is a Caucasian. He's not from Earth. He's human. She is a female with blue skin from another mostly water-covered planet. Human. This little guy here is a Dren. His name is Etta. Cute little guy. His tail glows like crystal opal in bright sunlight. And this is a silica-based creature. Silica-based DNA, carbon-based DNA. His species evolved with the ability to levitate and fly through the air as an organic species. And he's got a photographic memory. He's telepathic, as are these, as are all of us. And he's a master teacher, this little guy. He's not even human. So you'll see this. This is what we call the Ancient One. This is a representation. This guy has brought this. This is a doorway to the fifth reality above the void, known to Buddhists and some esoteric groups. It's above it. And there are many realms above that void. Unfortunately, people don't know this. So they don't imagine it. So they don't get there. So this would be called the Supreme Being or the Source. And this guy's introducing, they're hovering on anti-gravitic discs. Here's his ship, hovering stationary. They're on these discs, hovering above new lands and waters that have just risen after the last polar shift in Lemuria was destroyed. At that time, 100,000 years ago, Atlantis was a colony continent. It's not the Atlantis Edgar Casey talked about that was destroyed 35,000 years ago. It goes back further than that. So these people, right now, as they're being taught, including him, they don't know that there's one of these hovering above their head while this master teacher is working with them. They're being trained. This is about extraterrestrial involvement on Earth in our ancient past before the last polar flip. And it ties to present time on Earth. It's called the Emerald Doorway because that's an interdimensional doorway, a kind of a time portal. And there are over 30 illustrations in this book. Very fine black and white illustrations of characters and scenes so that people can understand visually what's taking place when they're reading the story. Very expensive to do this normally, but I publish these through my own publishing company, so I don't have to ask permission from anybody whether I do this or not.
Amazing.
If you look
at fascinating stuff.
So when you read it, you're going to have a visual treat. And I wanted to show you if I can find them. Here he is. Here's what Etta looks like close up.
Looks
very cute little guy.
Yeah, definitely looks like something from a Pixar movie.
Right, but he's not.
Yeah, of course.
He's not a salamander. There's 3 feet long from the root of his tail to the tip of his nose. He looks like he's amused about something when his mouth is closed. Big bulbous blue eyes, kind of pale green skin. He's not wet. And this guy he has dexterous hands and toes and fingers like a human, but he's not human. So yeah, that's Etta. And there's Calum. You're going to see all this stuff.
Amazing.
So these 2 books are connected to answer your question. This past that you were in, and everyone on this earth, is connected to the one that's changing things here. Project Blue Book from Jay Hynek's work is part of official Pentagon disclosure. You know, if you've ever seen Project Blue Book, if you watched the last episode, that actually took place. It was produced, distributed through the History Channel, not Sci-Fi. It was his diaries about what he really experienced about extraterrestrials when the U.S. was making him spin stories about swamp gas and to get people calmed down, to get their attention off of it. They're not real. It actually discloses what he worked with Werner von Braun, kind of a tyrant that guy really was in this country. What he was really working on, that wasn't rocketry. And then the last episode actually shows what happened to a lieutenant out at sea in the biggest naval exercise that almost got us in Third World War. And extraterrestrials were involved in what happened. So that episode was revealing so much. They had 2 more years of episodes written, and it was canceled. A&E owns the History Channel, and they got a call, and it's classified. You can't do these right now. People aren't ready. We'll let you have 2 years, but not now. So Zemeckis is a great producer. Amazing. They don't know why it was canceled. No. It was popular.
I see.
That's part of the disclosure. Yes. The Pentagon disclosing the F-16s flying around photographing the ship that was playing with them. That was officially released by the Pentagon.
I see. What can I say?
Disclosure, they wanted.
Amazing. I mean, this is so complex and interesting and out there and, amazing, and ties in with a lot of things that we see happening on our planet today. We have discussed everything quite thoroughly and in depth, and we've now reached the final stage of the interview where you are asked to please address your fellow humans directly from the bottom of your heart and your soul with a suggestion, request, demand, or any important, authentic, dramatic message you wish to impart to them. So, Scott Lemriel, the stage is yours. Your brothers and sisters are listening. Go ahead, please.
Thanks, Michael. I would recommend that people get the Sailor's Agenda and the Emerald Doorway books and go on the adventure. Don't read them like entertainment, because I didn't write them to be entertaining. They are. But the purpose is because the way they're written, Ambassador Torellian, who I introduced to you, had a hand in this, and he's not from Earth. It's written in such a way that it will stimulate dormant higher faculties and long-lost memories to begin to surface. People have experiences about this. And we work with the techniques at the back of the book. Then the hue, when you work with that, it's going to help you directly connect to the source in a more conscious way every day. And this is something that people need to experience, obviously, for themselves. This isn't work about belief or getting somebody to believe what I say. It's about them hearing this stuff for the first time and then actually deciding to co-creatively get involved in recovering who they are and what their real destiny really is. And it's quite wondrous. Being a co-creator with the source behind our life, that's pretty incredible.
It is.
It's normal to people out there among the stars. So Earth people got to catch up. We got to catch up a lot. And we're ready. I mean, the Earth is capable of doing it. They're going
Thank
to need a
God.
lot of help. I've always said Earth by people by themselves will not survive. But think of Earth as being on a critical area of almost being destroyed, like other worlds were in their history. And then some beings from other worlds made their representation known at the right time and stopped the total annihilation that people would have, with fear, have destroyed their world.
Yeah.
So Earth is designated to be next in that flow.
Thank God for that. Thank God for that.
Yeah.
So, Scott
Exactly.
Lemriel, what a fascinating interview. I've learned a lot, and all I could do is thank you very much for your time, and good luck with the books and everything else that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for having the courage to have me on. It
Pleasure.
takes courage.
Pleasure.
You have. I'll write an email to you. I'll send you
Please.
something that will help with that exercise, right? That I've written that will tie into the techniques and
under the video. So thank you very much for that, and good luck. And to our viewers, thank you very much for watching. What a wonderful interview it was. Fascinating, very complicated. The details for the books are going to be underneath the interview, so you're welcome to buy them and learn more about these fascinating subjects. Thank you very much for watching again, and see you in the next interview. Goodbye now.